Welcome and thank you for clicking on my video. Today we're going to get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, AMD, and Meta, looking over at GME and AMC, and then we're going to pop over to volatility, looking at a lot of things. But the important thing is this week is very significant. It is a very important week because it will decide, are we really going to head lower or maybe even lower into another buy zone, or are we actually going to see something like this where we set up some time to base out, set those traps where people think it's going to fall lower, and then we actually see something to the upside. We're going to point out these signals just like we did on Saturday. If you want to check out that Saturday video, we were looking at some good stuff, and now we're going to get into those shorter time frames and get you guys those weekly expected moves. So let's get into it. First thing we notice on the SPY is we don't necessarily have those reversal signals on slightly bigger timeframes to tell us that this is going to be some kind of bigger drawdown. And we haven't seen those big timeframes like we showed on Saturday. We haven't seen those really cross down, really even scaring us at this point. So there is always the opportunity to make a basing out signal, which in here we did have that. And we'll go over that in a moment just so you can be aware of what you need to probably find in this area. And the other important thing for this week is implied volatility has increased. And it makes sense after this kind of drop ending outside of a weekly expected move to get some bigger implied volatility for the week. So our expected moves have spread out. This is our 68% zone that is calculated using the options data. It is the best support and resistance that you will find out there as far as some lines on a chart goes. It really is, because it uses what people have really risked their money to calculate what these moves are for the week and how high or low the options market expects it to go. So something we can pay attention to is the upside, right? 597.33, and we see that as a very important level. We need to break through that, so that it makes sense that that would be there. And then we see the downside, we do have 574.17, which makes total sense as well. You can see we have a wick down in this area. You can see we retested around that area to head higher, and we actually created that bundle in the past there. So these levels coming into important areas, and we notice that. And for Monday, the implied volatility has spread out on the daily scale just a little bit here for what we've seen over the last few days. So we can pay attention to that and see if we're going to get these type of bounces. But something I wanted to point out with this block over here is this took 4 days to try to base out. We see the reversal signals. We're going to show that off right now. And we do see a 30-minute very significant divergence right before this big pop. We skipped through our entire sell zone. So that means, hey, squeeze is on, and we see the downward price action, but we see that upward momentum here for the MACD, telling you that this is a very showing a lot of weakness, and that this trend could turn back around. And this trend did turn around. You had the signal on the RSI at the same time, and it's something that's very important at the beginning of this video. This is what you need to understand going forward, right? This is something that pops up in markets all the time, but something that'll pop up a lot more during a bear market. So the course right now, it is down in the description, the full technical analysis course. If you are having trouble finding this type of move, this type of stuff in here, and you're always convinced like, hey, right here, it's going to crash, markets are very good at convincing that. Okay, so if you would like to learn this style, if you would like to learn deeper into divergences, deeper into the MACD, deeper into the RS, everything you need to know to really become more versed in technical analysis, that course down in the description, the full technical analysis course, it is 90% off until November 31st. Get it while it lasts, and then it is going away. That price is going way up. So I want you to get it before and just try to learn, because you probably have some time here, and that's what we talked about on Saturday. So for the SPY, we're looking for something similar in here, and this took 4 days. Well, if this takes 4 days to really play out, let's say we get some kind of bounce, because this is deep here, let's say we get some kind of bounce, that actually fails and comes back down into the zone, and then we end up bouncing up towards Thursday. Well, what happens on Thursday? NVIDIA earnings. So we'll see if NVIDIA earnings can cause this basing out. Maybe we're able to see some upside from that, but the important part is, what signals are we seeing in the SPY? Earnings can be a 50-50 flip. We want to see these signals in the SPY, and when we talk about volatility later on in this video, it's going to be important to understand that volatility and SPY showing the same signal at the same time will be very important. So stick around for that last little bit of volatility. It can really help you out more than you think throughout the week. So something for the SPY, this 30-minute, pretty cooked, right? And volatility over here on my right was actually up by 12.8%, which means over the next 2 trading sessions, that means Monday and Tuesday, we have an 85% chance to see an up day in the SPY. Okay, now that does not mean it has to be some kind of massive reversal. It can, but this could just be some kind of consolidative moves, right, in order to base out to create something like over here, and then we can pay attention to signals and see if they are confirming. That's what we're going to be paying attention to, but it does tell me, hey, this 30-minute is cooked, and if this would turn up, hey, that's a good thing, but we're going to run our head into a daily expected move. This is where the options market is pricing in as high up as we're supposed to go for Monday, and we have a very deep MACD. Something we really talk about in the swing trading course down there is the positioning of this MACD, and it's very important with the significance of divergence as well. So there's a lot of stuff you can learn about the MACD that not a lot of people talk about very often, and how to understand these type of things and when to actually see a good divergence, when that divergence is highly likely to play out, are very important things to understand if you're going to use these indicators. So something here is, that would be interesting if the 30-minute would pop up. It's really deep, so the chance of this going positive, it's going to be difficult. You're very far away, right? We're very far away from that center line. So you're going to have to see a lot of positivity for quite some time, and you could run your head into a daily expected move. You could run your head into a gap fill, and then you can just reject from those areas. This is something you kind of want to see, actually, right? You want that trend to continue for a little bit, because what that allows it to do is people start to think, oh, buy the dip, it's going to base out, and then it turns down again, and the second push down is where everyone gets bearish. And being a contrarian is something good, and this is kind of a contrarian signal. It's saying when everyone starts to go short in here, I'm going to go, hey, that thing just reversed around in momentum. We crossed up on this MACD with a 30-minute divergence, and most likely we will see a 2-hour push higher. Okay, so the 2-hour push higher, we're going to look out for this later on, but I think it's good to keep this in your mindset throughout this week. If we do curl up on this 2-hour, right, if we don't create basing out signals and we just see a rapid move from the 2-hour and we see this, then I'd be a little bit worried. That's just something that would really worry me, because that would create some kind of divergence here for the 2-hour on the RSI, on the MACD at the same time, and this could be a massive trap. As of right now, I think we have about 3 to 4 days of consolidation of some rip around moves. Implied volatility is higher, but we're going to see if we can make those basing out signals, and hopefully we don't turn down those weekly charts, because that's when we can get a little bit more bearish. Qs, we're looking for a similar thing. We're looking for signals that are on shorter time frames that tell us, hey, this 2-hour has a good chance to swing to the upside. And that's all you're really looking for here, is a simple swing trade, right? This is I know we've created basing out signals in here with a higher low on the Qs, a little bit different than the SPY, but still higher lows. Very important to understand the MACD with higher lows, because this did have a higher chance to go positive. We skipped through the entire sell zone, we gap above it, and off to the races. Everything fantastic there. But if you just paid attention to, hey, the 200's there, you have the MACD crossing, you're above all these center lines here, or you're above all these moving averages here, and boom, to the upside. That's really what swing trading is. That's why that's down there in the description, but we did have good basing out, so we need to look for that here. Signals that can turn this 2-hour to the upside. Do we necessarily have that? No, we don't at this point, but when we do create it, we might need to pay attention to, or while we're creating it, we might need to pay attention to some weekly expected moves. The weekly expected move upside, 510.47 for the Qs, 482.67 to the downside for the Qs. And then for the daily expected moves for Monday, we can look for 501.32. And then to the downside, we can look for 491.82. Okay, so now we have some key levels to pay attention to even for Monday, and we do update these every single night on YouTube for free for the SPY and the Qs. So join us back, make sure you subscribe and turn on those notifications, and we will go live every single morning, so you can come join us, ask questions, right? If you have any questions about the course, divergence, or anything that you've seen in the course, we don't want to just leave you out to dry. We want you to go take that course. If something's confusing, come into the live chat. No question is a stupid question there. But we can see that we have the similar problem with the Qs, which is the fact that we have no basing out signals from the RSI, from the price action, from the MACD. We just don't. You're far away from that center line. You're far away from crossing that 50 line for the RSI. So what do we like to do in these zones? And that's something very good to talk about. A lot of the time in these zones, if you break through them, you're going to retest into them in order to see more downside. But if you break to the top side of them and you come back into them, you can actually use these zones as support. They can become buyer zones, right? So that's why it's important we gapped above all of it, because, you know, sellers could have stepped in. So what we want to see here is, do we form those basing out signals? Over here for the Qs, you notice that was never able to confirm momentum down here again for the RSI. You carved out the higher low while the SPY actually confirmed a divergence. That's all good signals that you are going to experience a bounce. When you skip a sell zone and you start to cross over daily charts on volatility, you're going to get a squeeze. And we've mentioned that multiple times. So what we're looking for here is this level of 501.32. If we do get an upward move, because we're extremely oversold at this point, maybe the selling's not done, right? This isn't crossed up. But I can say if I'm going to see a trade setup, well, then I need to see good basing out structure here. So I want to see, hey, if the Qs can see a strong move and come down, maybe they do the same thing and they stop short and they make that higher low. So if they were able to do that, that would be a new series of maybe higher lows. So what that would do on your MACD is, instead of saying, hey, it's a divergence, it will be a crossing close to that center line, close to going into positive territory. So you might see this get up by that center line, maybe even cross it, come back down into it and cross back up, and you're very close to going into a positive trend. And that's when you want to pay attention. When that loop up, when that crossing is happening very close to positive territory, that's where you want to pay attention. Now, how could this thing head lower? Well, we already talked about the fact on Saturday, those weekly charts that we were talking about. If weekly charts start to roll, we got to start to pay attention. If monthly charts start to roll, we are seeing something way uglier. That's how I think about these things. The bigger time frames can tell us what is going on overall. But we do notice the shorter time frames, how we don't necessarily have those 2-hour signals that say, hey, this is some kind of daily rollover at this point. So if this daily here for the Qs is going to keep going down, right, we're going to keep going down and roll over and see something ugly, well, we can pay attention to a bottom side expected move. But I'm just saying you do not have those reversal signals here. So it is way more likely to fondle around down in here for a few days, see some good news, and then cross up into positive territory. And the key thing with that is, I already looked at the data. We do not get a ton of data this week either. So most likely we are going to see whatever is continuing now, some increased volatility for a few days, and then maybe a decision is made with NVIDIA earnings. I think Apple is trying to get out of this zone. I think Apple has broken through. It's broken through it. It's failed the retest. Then it broke through again. It failed the retest. Then it broke through again. Almost failed. Now we've broken through, retested, went higher. So this is very good behavior now for this zone. And if this zone is going to hold up, well, you don't want to see this drop very much lower, because you do have the opportunity on bigger time frames to take out this low if that happens. But we can see if that 30-minute just turns up, where are you? You're really close to the center line. And we just talked about that with the Qs. This curl up right here, where we saw a pretty dang good move, and this curl up right here where we saw a pretty dang good move over time, they all were very far away from the center line. So we want to pay attention to now, because if this 30-minute does turn up, maybe it sees that double dip, right? Create that structure in the zone. But if we're able to turn up into positive territory, that would be a good sign for Apple on the 30-minute, right? We want to see how this develops for Apple, because you do have some opportunity here for, hey, if this is really building up over time and we start to get tight here and that falls through, that can be a little bit uglier to the downside. We'll pay attention to that. For now, I just want to see if we're going to use this zone early on Monday and see if a trade actually sets up for Apple very soon. Tesla, some big implied volatility for the week again. If you want the weekly expected moves that I personally calculate for you, it's down on Patreon, right? It costs a cup of coffee a month. It will completely change your trading. It is great for taking profit. We talk about that in the course. It's great for finding those reversal signals. It's great for finding levels where those buyers or sellers will step in. And we use the options data to do that, right? It's very, very useful. Now, what we can notice from Tesla is this is a bounce up, right? We're trying to curl up and maybe even go positive. If that can go positive, we can curl up a 2-hour chart. Hey, that would be fantastic. You have a 2-hour swing. But a lot of the time before you curl up these 2-hour charts, you want to create the basing out structure. And since we do have a period of time where people are going to say, is this the bottom? Is this the bottom? Well, people really need a way for us to see if we have the bottoming signal. So do we have bottoming signals here? No, you do not. You do not. You have exactly what you're looking for in the SPY. You kind of have from Tesla right now. You see that the SPY, we were looking for that MACD to cross up and get to that center line. If that would cross down for a moment, if that could cross down for a moment and we just see this, that would be a better signal for Tesla to actually reverse that trend around and see that 2-hour swing trade. That is the main thing I want to pay attention to when it comes to Tesla. I want to see good reversal signals in these stocks. I want to wait for confirmations of those signals because we want to make sure that these things are playing out, and then we want to manage our risk throughout the trade. Because does Tesla have major reversal signals here? Well, it has a pullback signal. It has a very flat divergence here on the RSI, but it does not have that on the MACD, and you have a lot of room down here. So the most likely thing to happen from here is the positive trend will end up continuing after we figure out what's going on here, after we really try to base out. And I'm not saying that 30-minute divergence has to take place, right? This could be extended. We could see this 2 hour keep going down like this and then create those divergences down here to really base out. So I really want to be patient. I want to make sure I am seeing a reversal signal in this downward move, because if we keep heading down and we hold at those lower levels, then we might be rolling over weekly charts, and that's where you got to start to have the blinkers on. Amazon, just a fantastic trade. We talked about this a lot on Saturday because this is everything we look for in the course. Everything we look for is right here. You have 2 hour divergence at the high. We even said Amazon is one that's saying some kind of big drop is coming, and that's weird. Google was the other one. If you want to see Google, you can go into Saturday's video, but this is where we see, okay, upward price action way down on the MACD, pretty significant there for the RSI, and we get that to confirm. Is that negative? Well, it's trying to go negative right now. So Amazon is going to be important. Amazon, I believe, has an increased implied volatility for this week as well. Do we see basing out signals? No, we do not. Markets do not go down in one shot though. So if we are going to see us just flag out, right? These charts don't have to bounce up to daily expected moves. They could just flag like this, see another drop right when everyone gets bearish. You see that curl back up on this MACD down here and you go, ooh, that's divergence pretty close to that center line. And I like to see that because then we have the opportunity to make a 2 hour triple divergence or start a completely new trend if we get rid of those divergences. So that's what I would be paying attention to for Amazon. If this thing is going to escalate, you're going to start to see this weekly turn down, and that's where you have to be scared. I'm going to show Amazon one time and just say this is where fear is kind of justified. If this weekly does cross down, this is very close to the center line. That's why I want to show Amazon. This is very close to the center line, very significant at this point with pretty much triple divergence across the way on both indicators. So if that crosses, you want to be aware of that. But for now, the shorter time frames, I don't necessarily think that we're seeing enough of these type of signals on the shorter time frames, these 2 hour divergences. I don't think we're seeing enough of them to really say like, hey, there's weakness across the board on a ton of stocks. NVIDIA, you can see we drew up that little trend line here just on Friday, and we noticed that that's where we start to kind of, see some support come in. And that does make sense. You're near that gap, okay? So it does make sense in this area. Do we have major reversal signals on the 2 hour that says, hey, the daily is really going to suffer here? Well, there's a couple things going on here, which is you don't have the signals, right? We don't see those divergences that say there's weakness in momentum, but you did get some bad news that rolled over a daily chart. Now, all the technicals that we talk about here for NVIDIA, because the daily chart is suggesting there is divergence here, and it's a little bit more significant here, right? If I blow this up, you're going to see how this was flat, this is now down. So that's not a good sign on the daily scale. But the thing is, earnings is a 50-50 flip. Earnings is a 50-50 flip. And therefore, if NVIDIA comes out and they have terrible numbers, but someone says something good during the call or whatever, and we see buying come into this thing can go in the upward direction. Earnings is a 50-50 flip, and technicals can kind of be taken out the window. So I want you to be aware that this is there, but also be aware if the SPY and the Qs start making those basing out signals. Even if NVIDIA doesn't, we want to pay attention if the SPY, the Qs, and multiple other stocks are, because that might give us a hint of what Wall Street is really trying to do. Are they trying to reload in other stocks for NVIDIA earnings, and then we see the big pop? That's kind of what I want to pay attention to going forward, and we'll be paying attention to volatility in just a moment. AMD, it just looks really bad. I mean, this thing has looked bad for a long time. If you're someone who has said, oh, stocks are not crashing, well, AMD has crashed. I mean, AMD over time here, yeah, we've seen some, rip around kind of moves here, but you can really see how AMD was up at 215, now is down to 134. That is a massive drop, okay? That is a massive drop. So you have to be paying attention to buy zones, and this is a zone to pay attention. The only thing is you don't have the best reversal signals right now. So something that could actually happen for AMD, as this was a pretty good sell-off, is Well, look at this divergence we have here on the MACD. We do not have it down there on the RSI. So it's important to know these aren't at the same time. So if AMD even gets a 2-hour pop and that actually drops back off, we could see this need to make a stronger base on the 2-hour before we see this base out and start to see some daily upside. Okay, so that's what I want to pay attention to. Now, this does not mean that this can't shape back up over time if we're seeing similar signals across the board. Right now, once again, you have a very deep MACD on the 30-minute. You do not have any reversal signals down here. So if you're going to end up going up, usually you want to make those reversal signals. You want to make a very strong base, especially if this is going to go up over a longer period of time. You got to make a strong base. So what we could end up doing is maybe we go to up to here to where that gap resistance comes in, or maybe we actually fill this gap and then turn back down and create that basing out structure to actually head higher. And I'd be looking for a pretty steep divergence here from AMD. I am not someone who's liked trading AMD over the past 6 months just because the stock's been really wonky and the stock's been really weak. So these bounces have usually been lackluster, but you can see how, at least in the past, when we do make some kind of basing out, right? We're coming straight down, then we taper, and you're starting to see all these rejection divergences, and then we turn up. Hey, it's a good move. So if we do something like that over here, I would likely see a good move from AMD with some good basing out structure. Meta, big drop. I believe it went directly towards the weekly expected move on Friday. So very interesting from Meta, but it has the same problem. And that problem is, weirdly enough, you're getting this like almost expanding, right? Expanding wedge going on here. And a lot of the time that can actually break to the upside when it's at this angle. So we'll see what happens with this. But in order to do that, you're going to have to make a stronger base. This is a really, really deep MACD. If it would just curl up on a 2-hour into positive territory, right? If that thing just curls up, that would be pretty random. It would be just a rug pull of the short buyers at that point, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens with this, but do you have major reversal signals here? No, you just have a little bit of a series of lower highs. You have a little bit of a series of lower lows at this point. So you're going to need to break that trend and probably carve out a higher low at some point to break through these key levels. A lot of liquidity starting to spread out. So maybe we want to wait till that actually gets a little tighter and then we can see a big move from Meta. Do I think Meta is the most clear stock to trade at this point? No, I would say there are better opportunities, maybe even just in the indices would be the clearest opportunities over the next few days. In AMC, we were pointing out there's little divergences in here, but the 2-hour crossing, whenever that 2-hour crosses, you got to be like, ooh, that's unfortunate. Happened on a Friday. Where do they want to close it below? Well, max pain was at 450, so they closed it at 448, right? So we know that on Friday, this is where the battle begins, and they really want to fight the stock when we do get above those weekly moves, because that is where the options market doesn't expect it. So if you want great levels for AMC, well, we're going to update you those levels right now. So we're going to look over at AMC real quick and give you that level, and you'll notice that this is at 496. So what would you say is the important level or the very important whole number to get through for AMC to see something crazy? Well, it's going to be $5. Now, am I leaning towards that happening this week, something crazy happening? I could see how it's possible as this is, closing on a Friday at slightly higher levels, but the fact that they were able to fight the stock and the 2 hours crossed down, I have to say momentum is telling you that this is shifting down. You don't have reversals here, but anytime that 2 hour turns down, you want to go, ooh, that's not a good sign. Maybe at 437, we can start to curl up into positive territory because we don't have those big reversal signals. So as long as this remains positive and can curl up, it has a shot. If it starts to go negative, it looks a little bit more worrisome. Maybe we need to find a little 30-minute divergence in here. For GameStop, you'll notice that the same thing happened, and that is why we pay attention to these levels with AMC and GME. The options market is in serious control of this. The market makers are in serious control of this stock, and you have to understand that because they can do things like spoofing and all those kinds of things. They can do funky stuff in the options market to actually mess with the stock. And you notice as we get above, what do you think? 28.21 last week? We did not want to close above that level, according to the market makers. And that 2 hour does shift down, and we had 30-minute divergence all across this. If you want to see that, we pointed it out throughout the week. A bunch of wonky 30-minute divergences saying, hey, I could hold up and go higher. or I could cross down and try to go negative, and that's what ends up happening here. And you notice that we start to really see this thing sell off once you're really, really close to the center line, and that's very good to see. That's the behavior you want to see, and that's what turns down 2-hour charts. So you turn down a 2-hour chart. Do you have a big 2-hour divergence that says this is going to fall through the floor? No, it's actually very positive. So if this could get by that center line, the most likely thing is to pull back, but this level of about 23.50 is very, very good. I kind of like that level, and I want to see if that can curl up into positive territory. Now, if that does curl up, right, if it doesn't, then you got to watch out because the stock's probably heading lower. But if it does curl up into positive territory, what's the level I can pay attention to for next week? Well, that level would be 3104. So you can look at 3104. Notice that has spread out because we've moved up in price. So 3104 is what we're going to need to get through in order to see something crazy. We did it a couple times now, right? And we've seen some good price action from those times. Now we're seeing, hey, that 2 hours pulling back. And notice this. The last time we saw a good move, 2-hour pulled back, curled up into positive territory, good things happen. So the 2 hours turning down, maybe that pulls back. If we turn up into positive territory, good things can happen. You really want to keep it simple for GME. If the signals look good, I'll take my options plays. If it's not looking good, I'll just hold the stock like I have been. Volatility, we're really just going to reiterate what we were talking about on Saturday, which is one thing on the 2-hour, right? The 2-hour showed the reversal signal. Okay, so volatility, Amazon, Google, some stocks giving you a hint that, hey, volatility can pop here, and it did. So we were paying attention to this signal, right? But we're also paying attention to the fact that we were squeezing, and most of the time you like to end up back down towards 1212 during those squeezes, especially when you close below the daily 200. So we'll pay attention. It doesn't mean volatility can't come back in. You just want to see if that daily chart is rotating back up for the MACD crossing. Now, what I want to watch for over the next few days is if volatility and the SPY can make the same signal at the same time. So now when I say this with volatility, it will be in the opposite direction. So what did we say we're looking for from the SPY? We're looking for this to happen in the SPY to create that basing out. We see the MACD giving us the opposite signal. But what are we looking for from volatility here? Well, we're looking for, if we're going to get that bounce early on in the week, maybe we react down to the 5, we see volatility come back in for a moment, and then we see this, and that will be the signal to pay attention to. And then on your MACD, you're going to see a downward angle like this. So this is exactly what we are looking for that basing out structure from volatility and the SPY at the same time. This is kind of the type of thing you saw before the election. So all of this added up to, hey, we were going to see a bounce with the election. I thought we were going to hit the sell zone, but Trump was enough good news that we actually gapped above the entire sell zone, which is amazing to see. It's insane to see, but I'm glad that I was out of my volatility calls before that happened because I was paying attention to signals like this. And if you still struggle to see these things, if you struggle to understand these things, the course down in the description, it is 90% off. You can literally get it right now for $100. $100, and I've heard my course is way better than people that are charging $2,000 bucks. And I've paid for those courses before. It's full of useless info, and my course I really want to dedicate to what exactly do I use in my trading that I see as very important, and that's the things that I tell you: divergence, looking at volatility and the SPY at the same time, paying attention to weekly expected moves. All of those things are things that I use every single day to figure out which way I would like to actually position my money. Right? We want to find these good signals. We want to be patient and wait for something like this to set up because this is the real opportunity. This is something that I'm willing to risk my money behind. So thank you so much to all of you who have dedicated yourself to learning over the weekend. I'm already getting emails of people being like, wow, I was hesitant to take it. Now I'm taking it, and I've already learned so much just on the MACD section alone. So it's nice to hear those type of things. But dedicate yourself to some learning. Other than that, you can follow this channel, and we can talk about things live every single morning. The main takeaway for this video is actually very simple. If this is going to be some kind of blip and be some kind of trap, we are most likely going to see something like over here form in this area. And thank you so much for subscribing. Sorry, someone subscribed during the video. But that's what we really need to see. We need to see basing out structure. We need to see, oh yeah, this is the dip. People are going in. Oh no, it really is going to crash. And right when everyone believes it's going to crash and you see that momentum turn up, you know something that people don't, and that's the important thing. Dedicate yourself to some learning, and you'll know something that people don't. You'll be paying attention to the right things and not listening to the mainstream media, because once this does happen, they're going to be saying, oh my gosh, the market is going going to crash, and then it's just probably going to turn back around, and we'll see some upside if we get that basing out structure. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for liking, subscribing. You guys are fantastic. I look forward to streaming with you guys on Monday morning, so join us for that. But also, I want to wish you guys some great luck, some great patience, and some great luck in your trades for this week. And hopefully we all have a good one, right? I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Sunday. Peace out.